we've got a few more signings to dive into.
This offense continues to evolve as the season goes on.
Welcome to Bucs Insider, presented by Hard Rock Bet Sportsbook. Casey Phillips here with Scott Smith and Bree Dix, and we got a combine happening, which means, in my mind, the off season's over, right? Like, we went through this that last basically week or so without football, and now we're back to the combine.
Free agency's about to start.
Yeah, I love the NFL has found a way to be relevant literally year round, which we are very thankful for, and gives us.
Bree was there.
You were there. You went to the combine yourself.
A little chilly in Indianapolis, about 20 degrees.
But you can walk everywhere.
Snowed a little bit.
Outside.
Yes, that is the best.
Skywalks, incredible thing.
That's a great point. So we figured we'd just kind of talk about the combine overall. Of course, we got to hear from Jason Light, Todd Bowles, and their press conferences. So to kind of just look at the combine overall, schedule-wise especially, the NFL people typically get there around Sunday or Monday of this last week. Mm-hmm. And then, you have the last player workouts will be this next Sunday. So it's essentially like a week-long endeavor. Not everyone is there for the entire week of that. You have 319 players invited to participate. That's so many people. And most teams are sending GM and head coach and medical staff and personnel staff and your assistant coaches, scouts, everybody. You're sending people from essentially all aspects of your football side, because there are so many different things going on that you have people like your coaches and scouts, obviously, who are wanting to watch the workouts, also interview everybody. You have the medical, there's a lot to it, so you're gonna want so many different elements of your staff there to be able to participate in all of that. And I know that also, again, the schedule varies depending if you're the team side, the player side, but it's a pretty frantic few days there, especially for the players.
Yeah, and everybody focuses on the head coach and the GM being there, but probably the most important team members that are there are the medical, the trainers and the doctors, because that was really how combines began. There was a need to bring all these players together so every team didn't have to go to 300 different players and give them their medical exam. Now they can all do it in one spot. So the players, now they come in groups, in waves, so they're not all overlapping every single day. And basically, it's about a 5-day cycle for them. One day they may do, or they start with an orientation, and then the next day they do the medicals, and then they do the media interviews, and then they do the part that everybody's waiting for, which is the on-field workouts. This is each one's a different day. And then finally, the last day, they do bench press. It's just weird that one whole day devoted to bench press, but that's what it says on the schedule. So, it's a kind of like a cycle for each player in there right now. And some of the coaches for teams do that as well. So if you're the quarterback's coach and they're not getting there till Wednesday, you don't really need to be there on Monday.
Right.
So you see we've seen some of our assistant coaches around the building this week that aren't there yet, but some will be coming back and some will be going.
Yeah, especially if you're a position coach, you're probably mainly going to watch that position.
Your position.
Yep. And then, so as maybe some fans are wondering, if I don't have time to sit there all day, every day over the next 5 days to watch all these drills, when should I tune in, especially for the Bucs potentially? If I'm going to try and get a first look at some of these people, when are some of these different position groups doing things of if I'm being strategic on who I want to watch?
So live coverage begins on February 26th on NFL Network and NFL Plus, so you can watch there, and then it'll run throughout the week leading up to March 2nd, and then kind of a breakdown of position groups. So on Thursday, February 26th at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, defensive linemen and linebackers will go through drills. Friday, February 27th at 3 p.m. Eastern, defensive backs and tight ends. Saturday, February 28th at 1 p.m. is quarterbacks, wide receivers, and running backs. And then Sunday, March 1st at 1 p.m. Eastern is offensive linemen.
So it sounds like Thursday's the big
So definitely
day.
Thursday will be defensive linemen and linebackers.
Tune in.
So
hopefully you're watching this quickly.
Tune in. Yes.
Tune in. That's very interesting. So now we wanted to get into, of course, Jason Light, Todd Bowles spoke to the media. They talked both on the big podium, essentially, to everyone, which involves typically locals and nationals, but then they'll also do kind of a separate breakout session that isn't streamed live with just some of the local people. So in terms of the main big press conference that we all got to see, what's something that stood out to you, Bree, from Jason Light in particular?
Well, Jason Light stressed that both Mike Evans and Levante David, there's been open lines of communication. They would love to have both back, but that they've earned the right to see what their options are in free agency, and that they've earned that respect to have the time to mold the decision of if they want to continue playing, if they want to retire. And then he also said that they will be meeting with Mike Evans' agents at the Combine.
Yep, that is a huge part of the combine that I think a lot of people
Yeah,
don't always
that's a good
realize
point.
is, all the dinners and the, going to some of the different restaurants nearby, that's when a lot of these people get to talk to each other.
A lot of steaks and shrimp cocktails.
Yes, many steaks and shrimp cocktail have created amazing deals in the NFL. So Scott, what about for you listening to something that Todd Bowles said?
Yeah, I listened to the Todd Bowles or watched it press conference, and there was, I think it's obvious that the Buccaneers have more concerns on defense heading into this offseason. Doesn't everybody kind of feel that way? So it was unsurprising that Todd was asked a lot of questions about specific defensive players, so I just thought I'd go over a few of those. For one, on a very good note, Tyke Smith, he was asked if Tyke's going to stay at safety, because if you recall, he played mostly slot in his first season and then moved to safety last year. And he said that throughout most of the season, about 3/4 of the season, Tyke was our best player on defense, and that he's definitely staying at safety long term. So that was a big one. Then also he talked about the 2 rookie cornerbacks from last year, Benjamin Morrison and Jacob Parrish, who in the final game were both starting on the outside. Of course, Zion McCollum and Jamel Dean were both sidelined for that game. But Jamel Dean is a potential free agency loss. And he said both of those guys would be competing to play on the outside, but that Jacob Parrish would still play in the slot when we're in the nickel.
Yeah.
So it's sort of that it could be that Rondé Barber type role where you start on the outside and go on the inside. Servassier Dennis, he said that he still has a chance to start in the NFL if he can clean up a little bit in the middle of the field, basically in coverage. Said he did a good job of tackling, and that he definitely will have a chance to start, but there will be competition for him. So we all expect there to be additions at that part. And then finally, Chris Braswell, a second-round pick from a couple years ago, really hasn't received a ton of playing time in that rotation, but Todd thinks he got better as the season went along last year, made some strides, and that if he's given the opportunity to play a lot, he does think that he can blossom into a more impactful player.
Yeah, it's interesting. And you brought up Jamel Dean, and of course that's definitely one of the potential free agents that we're going to be watching heavily. I mean, he's been on this team for a long time. So first wanted to play a quick soundbite of Todd Bowles talking about Jamel specifically.
I thought Dean had a very good season. I thought he came back and had a solid season. His whole thing since he's been here has been injuries, kind of. He's had some injuries and availabilities coming to play, but he's put together a heck of a season this past season. He's earned his right to free agency and probably try to recoup and get some things back. So you never know how those things go, but I've spent my whole time here with Dean since we drafted him. It's never been a talent thing. It's always been an injury thing and availability.
So yeah, I thought, Coach made a great point of Jamel has shown he has the talent, especially this last season was
probably
one of his best. It might be his best of his whole career, and it's just been unfortunate that he's had to deal with those injuries, but those are all things you take into account with free agency of when you want to bring someone back is availability and skill set when they're out there, and Jamel's proven he has a skill set, and it's just been unfortunate he's had to miss so much time. So then someone was talking to Jason Light about just overall his philosophy on building through the draft, building through free agency, and knowing that we do have several really important people on this team that have played key roles that are going to be potential free agents this year. And so Jason was asked about what he thinks about re-signing those.
We always lean on the draft. That's where we get that's our bread and butter, and that's always been a basic principle for us. But we will obviously look at free agency as well, and we're not shutting the door on any of our free agents. We're going to make attempts at signing some of them back. I don't want to get into names which ones we're prioritizing, but it's a lot of good players, and we have to make some decisions.
I always love watching the dance that happens with this time of year where it's like they don't want to give away strategy, but we're going to answer things, and maybe I want certain people to hear this versus not. It's always kind of funny to listen to these and think about that. But I mean, Jason Light was talking about it, that there are a lot of potential free agents on this team that they want to bring back, but you don't always have the ability to control everything. And, Jamel's an interesting one, but there's a lot of free agents that it's going to be interesting to see how and who you're able to prioritize, sign, bring back, because there's only so much money to go around.
And there's 31 other teams that
vying.
I don't think we're using a franchise tag, so all these guys are going to have the chance to make it to free agency.
Yep.
And, Jamel's probably one of the top cornerbacks that are going to hit the market if he doesn't resign before that. So there'll be plenty of competition.
It's very true. And then also I know that Coach and Jason get asked about things like injury updates. While at the Combine's really the first time we've gotten to hear from them since the end of the season, when it was right after the season. They didn't really know much of anything about some of the injury stuff. So what did we learn on that front?
So a positive from Jason Light, he confirmed that both Cody Mauch, who suffered the season-ending knee injury, and then David Walker, who had the ACL and reparative surgery, should be ready to go for training camp. But I think one of the things he emphasized was the excitement they had surrounding David Walker, and that kind of threw a wrench in their plans a little bit from his ability to rush the passer along with Kalijah, who had the injury, and then with Vida and Yaya. But I think what we saw from him in OTAs really impressed was already bypassing blockers really quickly, and I think he plays with a quick get off, natural leverage, but also just his ability to read the tackle's weight and then exploit those weaknesses. You were already seeing his ability to do that. Was obviously a 3-time consensus All-American, so I think he's going to do big things in 2026.
He went on injury reserve on August 2nd. I assume his reparative surgery was somewhere around the same time. So training camp, that'll be about a year removed, and that should be enough time to
essentially
come back
had a
from
red
an
shirt.
ACL.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, it's almost going to be like we have an extra draft pick.
Right.
And he's one that they were very excited about,
Very
that's
happy
for
for
sure.
him.
Also, someone else that the team was very excited about that unfortunately had to miss a lot of the season was Jalen McMillan. I wanted to play what Coach said about him as well.
I was just happy to see him come back. You know, there was a point in the season where I didn't know if he would come back, and then if he came back, I didn't know if he would have the jitters, especially with a neck injury. And I think the first game back, he took a vicious hit and kind of fell on his neck, and he got up like nothing happened, and then I was happy after that. But Jalen's a very talented guy. He's a very passionate guy. I think he fits in great with the receiver room. He's a workhorse. He comes out to work every day. I think he's got some great football ahead of him, and I'm glad he's back.
Yeah, I love the points Coach made about how, first of all, it was incredible he came back even just physically during the season, but then the mental side as well, and watching how you just don't know how someone's going to respond to an injury, specifically when it comes from like a neck, a spine, something like that that's just so scary.
You worry about them being career-ending.
Yes, you worry about it being career-ending from, again, a physical standpoint, but also like how are they going to be able to handle taking that first hit? There's got to be some fear there, and Jalen handled both things incredibly well. Of just crushed the rehab physically, came in, took a huge hit, popped right back up, ready to go, fired up. So I feel like just such a testament to him, again, mentally and physically, and I'm very excited to see him get a full season, hopefully, this year, right out of the gate, because I just think that he was someone they knew could really produce on a high level. So now, of course, again, like we said, even though the Combine is sort of draft focused, the free agency is what's right around the corner, and it's just going to be interesting to see. There's, again, a lot of people on this team that are various kinds of free agents, and so we like to remind everybody what those are, the different aspects of who can leave, who do we have a chance to maybe try to keep, and how that works.
Yeah, we've already talked at length about the 17 potential unrestricted free agents, but I don't think we've mentioned the other types yet. We do have 3 restricted free agents in Christian Izien, Sean Tucker, and Marquise Watts, and 1 restricted or exclusive rights free agent in long snapper Evan Deckers. And then the contract that punter Riley Dixon signed with us last year has a club option, so we can either pick up or decline that option to keep him as our punter for next year or not. So restricted free agents are ones who have 3 accrued seasons of free agency credit, or that many specifically, and they can negotiate with other teams, but the existing team has a right of first refusal or would get draft pick compensation depending upon what tender offer they put on these guys. Now, what the Buccaneers have tended to do in recent years is just re-sign them for whatever that deal would have been before we even get to free agency, and just skip that whole process of letting them hit that and then matching or not matching. So if the Bucs want to keep any of these 3 players, they probably will do so before the start of free agency if the last few years are any indication. And then exclusive rights free agents have 2 or fewer years of accrued credit, and they can't negotiate with anybody but their existing team.
So someone I wanted to highlight on this list was Christian Izien. I think this is one of our more underrated people on the roster in terms of what he can contribute and his ability, even when he has not been a starter. He is the definition of versatile, and I think nowhere else on the team do you value versatility the same way as you do in the secondary. We have seen, especially with injuries, that, as you always put it, you can never have enough corners, never have enough DBs. And for him to have the ability to play nickel, to play safety, to just be this Swiss Army knife, unbelievable. And I think it's very hard to find someone that can do all those things, do them well, reliably. And he now knows Coach Bowles' defense, which, again, particularly that nickel position is a very challenging one within Bowles' defense. So even if you think there is someone else out there you could find that could be that versatile, they're having to start behind where Christian would be from just a knowledge standpoint of the defense. So for him to already know it so well, have proven he can play all these different positions at a high level, I think that would be a bigger loss than people even realize because of just the way he adds depth so many places.
Yeah. He's a very trusted player. I would be surprised if the Bucs didn't re-sign him.
Yeah. Bree, did you have somebody on the list that stood out
Yes,
to you?
I wanted to touch on Sean Tucker with the potential departure of Rachaad White, but I think he's a guy that he makes splash plays when he is in. There's always that game, I feel like, each year where he makes that significant contribution, but he just runs with a low center of gravity, has that really great contact balance, can find that lateral escape patch, inside rushes. And I think one of the biggest things for him is going to be, and one of the underrated elements of Rachaad White's game was his ability in pass protection, the blocking element that he had. And I think Sean Tucker would have to develop that area of his game. But obviously we've seen what he's been able to do, whether it's between the tackles or on the perimeter.
All right.
I
Well,
think one of my favorite things in a running back highlight is when they are running to the outside behind an offensive lineman and they kind of put their hand on his back.
yeah.
Just kind of like steering him a little bit.
I
and then
almost,
just
it
did
almost
it right there.
makes me think of
Yeah.
like they're holding like the reins, like they're like steering
Yeah,
that way,
exactly.
like they're riding a horse and
Go
they're
this
just holding
way.
that rein there.
Do you all see what these 3 restricted free agents have in common?
What?
They were all
Oh,
undrafted
undrafted.
rookies because the way that it works is every drafted player gets a 4-year contract. And so if they make it through that contract, they just go straight to unrestricted free agency.
Right.
Whereas the restricted free agents can get any number of years. Usually we do 3.
Yeah. And all 3 of those are really interesting people in terms of how they ended up here in their path and the no guarantee to make the roster, and they've all ended up contributing in their own way, which is interesting. All right, that is going to do it for us on this edition of Bucs Insider. Thanks so much for being with us, and we'll be back next week to be able to break down everything that happens in all of those combine workouts right here on Buccaneers.com.